Hey everybody, welcome to the Future Podcast. I'm your host, Sean Donlan. I'm here today with my guest, Colin McCubbin. Colin, how are you?
Very good, Sean. Thanks for
Yeah,
having me.
you're
How are you?
surviving.
Yeah, surviving for sure. I think
Nice.
everyone's on hold these days.
Yeah. It's kind of very tempting to be out and about today. The weather is gorgeous.
It is gorgeous. Yeah, 19 degrees, I think, was the high in Vancouver.
Oh, really?
Yeah, ridiculous.
Nice.
And
Yeah, nice. I didn't get out to it too much now today, but it's nice. So, kind of giving you a brief overview of the podcast. Thanks for coming on. Really appreciate it. You're somebody who I respect tremendously. I respect your opinion on a lot of things, and I've kind of sent you over stuff in the past that I wanted you to look over for me, and I want to introduce you to the wider audience. So you've been at a number of our events and stuff, and this podcast is an extension of those events, and I wanted the audience to hear a little bit about your story. So if you don't mind, telling them a little bit about who you are and I suppose how your world is at the moment and where you've come from.
Sure, right on, Sean. As you know, I'm obviously living in BC now, but I grew up in Ontario. I'm from Toronto originally.
We won't hold that against you.
I hope not. I went to UBC, so I did make the move quickly out of high school. But had a great family in Ontario, and they continue to be there. So I have to go back to Ontario each year to make sure everyone's doing okay.
Good stuff.
But otherwise, I'm a BC resident and went to a great high school in Ontario, Upper Canada College, if you know it. I got to say, my education there and the things I learned, along with my training in sailing with Canadian Yachting Association, really put me off on a good step. Pretty much my life skills and my base in terms of my beliefs, my values, my ethics were all there. They started there and they were reinforced there. So coming out to BC, UBC, I was definitely ready to go and graduated with a sports marketing and management degree.
Sports marketing, really?
Which is part of BHK. I was actually planning to be a sports agent.
Cool.
I just lucked out that in my final year, before going into the law section of my degree, the three agencies in Canada actually amalgamated into one. And most agents lost their job, and there were definitely no new jobs for anyone coming out of university. So,
wow.
Which is finance. And I went right into finance from there. I went to RBC. Definitely have been with the big banks a fair bit. So RBC and TD Securities were my first two places. I really liked working with people. And at RBC, I was an account manager, and I wanted to become an investment advisor. My manager at the time actually told me that it would be about a 10-year road to become an investment advisor, and I thought that I could probably do that faster another way. So I switched over to TD Securities, and I became a bond market specialist. I did that for 2 years, and on my second year, I got to say I decided that talking on the phone all day, 130 calls, trading hundreds of millions of dollars that you never actually saw was less exciting than I thought. And I really like the human touch. So again, I moved on, but before I moved into another financial position, I actually decided to go complete a dream and sail all over the world. So I did that. I took a few years and became a navigation officer and sailed really all over the world, and enjoyed it immensely. But after 3 years, I knew that my time was spent, and it was time to come back to dry land.
What kind of ships were you captain of?
So I was on tall ships, as well as cargo ships, as well as cruise ships.
Wow.
I started out on cargo as a cadet, and then moved into a tall ship for a 6-month stint. It was only 6 months, but it was a great 6 months. That was the Caledonia out of Halifax. and then moved over to the cruise ships after that as second officer navigation, first officer navigation with Royal Caribbean. So yeah, really enjoyed that time.
Wow.
Got to see lots of the world, so North and South America, as well as the northern countries in Europe and Russia and Scandinavia. So yeah, it was pretty great. But yeah, so it was definitely time to come back. I had a lot of time at sea, and it's interesting how life at sea is a little bit different. Not the best for family man. So I had a great girlfriend, and we wanted to move on to the next step, and came right back into finance. And this time with BMO. I was an investment specialist with them for a year and a half before becoming an investment advisor. So it took me a little under 10 years to become that investment advisor, but I also got to sail all over the world and become a navigation officer, restricted. So
You
that was
showed that way,
yeah, exactly. But yeah, so now working with clients, I've really found my niche. What's the most important thing? Trust. Working together with clients really is all about trust. And the more they understand what I'm doing, the more we're going to be able to get through all the issues that the market comes to. So over the last 10 years, definitely done a lot of training for my clients. And as I was an educator when I was a kid, coaching sailing and teaching instructors how to teach. I now find myself doing this all the time with my clients and really enjoying it, making sure that they're clear on what we want to do and how we're going to complete or be successful in their objectives and goals. Going through the markets and watching for blips and things that shouldn't be happening, as well as price fluctuations that are in our favor, is really one of my favorite things to do. So when I'm building portfolios, I run a concentrated equity portfolio for my clients, and that's along with satellite positions of ETFs and mutual funds for areas in the world and investments that I don't specialize in. So I'm really looking at North America at my investments, and mostly they're just large cap, value, GARP, good cash flow or positive cash flow that's growing, and earnings are growing, sales are growing. It's obvious things that should be happening with a company that's going to be successful. So that's what I'm looking at in my portfolio, but obviously I can't specialize in everything. So I look to mutual funds and ETFs to fill the gaps. And basically I'm looking at global portfolios that are small and medium cap that are from a great company. Most of my work is done with EdgePoint on that. And then there's ETFs that you can use to add to portfolios as well when we have some money that's just been kind of waiting to get into the market. When we see an opportunity, especially like what we're in today, which is a terrible thing that's going on, but also something that's full of opportunity for investment. We definitely believe in getting that money working for their clients. And despite having still a couple clients that get afraid and feel the fear and the stress and the pressure that's going on with markets crashing and falling, seeming to fall apart, you have to hold their hand. You have to bring them back and bring them to the point, the plan of the plan of the day, the plan of their life, what we need to be doing financially to make this work. And so although right now with the coronavirus, I'm definitely not saying I have any kind of crystal ball that tells us we've seen the bottom. For sure I have not. But we did see a low at 2,200 on the 23rd of March. And the week and a half before that, I was buying a lot. And I've been buying a little bit here and there since then. There's just great companies out there that are going to be around when we do finally come out of this, that are at prices that we haven't seen since 2003. So it just makes sense to make sure that we take some of them with us. Yeah.
For people listening, if you had, a few dollars to spare, or even a few dollars to spare, and you were looking at 2 or 3 companies, who would you recommend? Hard to say.
Yeah, 2 or 3 companies is a tough one. So along with the portfolio that I run for my clients, I also run a concentrated equity portfolio of just 4 companies for another couple of advisors. And so their portfolios with
just 4.
Yeah, their portfolios for their clients are mutual funds and ETFs mostly, so okay. 80%. And then they wanted to have 20% sleeves of concentrated equity from me. So we actually, I fibbed. It's not 4 positions, it's 5. So 4% per position in the portfolio. And the 5 that we have right now, we've just actually updated, and we're really happy with the buys that we made in Manulife, Air Canada, MasterCard, sold IBM, TD. We just sold IBM actually. And the last one is oh no, who is it? Oh, Shopify, of course. We bought Shopify originally at $120, and they're sitting at 670 or so right now. We've reduced that position 3 times in the portfolio, so we really are just in with winnings. But it's still a very good company, and it's definitely going to be something that can continue to grow with the future of the economy in this world of viruses and pandemics. Hopefully we don't have to continue this too much longer, though. We can get back to the new normal.
Yeah. Do you think we'll get back to a new normal? Do you think there'll be certain things that we do differently? Will there be a second wave that we're going to have to worry about? What's your opinion?
Yeah, the second wave is definitely my biggest worry. I heard a few days ago that numbers in eastern China are increasing, partly because of Russia on the border. So I guess actually that's northwest. But yeah, that's stressful for sure. If we have a second wave, then really all bets are off in terms of how far we go down in the market. We definitely have other levels that we already know that are floors, the supports that the market could drop to, but those are not good levels that we want to see happen. So we're hoping that we're able to continue seeing light at the end of the tunnel. We keep on seeing the curve flattening across the states. The problem with this staggered shifting or staggered action plan is really not helping. When the pandemic really took hold in China, if the entire world, and I know it's hard to say if the entire world had all agreed previously, but like Bill Gates was on this tack like 10 years ago. Yeah. If we'd all just agreed to just go home for 2 weeks, we would have been done with it.
I know, but I guess there was a lot of misinformation also with the information coming out, and on top of that, I think the World Health Organization openly criticized the U.S. for closing the borders, and so you're right. What you're saying is totally right. But when the World Health Organization, I think Trump pulls funding from them today.
Yeah, he did, and I'm not sure that's the best of things to do.
I don't think so either.
We have to be one on this. The whole world has to be together and a team. And blaming anyone is just being teenager stuff. Yeah. So I think that next time, if there is a next time, I hope we're more ready to get a front together that includes the entire world on a mission to just get it done. So
there has to be a next time, even if it's not this. It's viruses are. I read somewhere today that there's something like 30,000 active viruses in the world at the moment for human beings, and for vertebrates there's something like in the millions, and it could be even in the hundreds of millions. So
Yeah.
we live with this. It's just the first time in living memory for us. So we've had to, but even we've had SARS. There was MERS. There was, I think there
Totally.
was there a flu called the Hong Kong flu in the 70s or something?
I believe so. Yeah. And then there was the Spanish flu in the early 1900s.
Exactly.
I think that overall, like we've seen pandemics before, but we just haven't seen all the economies in the world being globally connected when the pandemic hits. And because of that, it affects everyone so much. So all supply and demand chains being knocked down really hurts every company.
Yeah. It kind of gives a good argument for the people who say, produce stuff in your own country, buy Canadian or...
Exactly. And that kind of pats Donald Trump on the back, which we don't really want to do, but it's something that he's been wanting the states to be working towards. So I think that overall, instead of doing that, we have to be more ready on a global front to act. And so hopefully we use this as a positive to make things better in the future and not distance ourselves from each other.
That's what I'm thinking as well.
Yeah. But again, though, as you said, like coming out of this, I think things that will continue are definitely, we are going to be more careful. Our social distance is probably going to be sticking around for quite a while. I don't know if the 2-meter rule is going to be there for too long, but everyone's going to keep it in mind a little bit more. And I think that there's going to be some definite pain in the airline sector as well as cruise ships. Everything that requires basically confined spaces that could cause a quick spread of anything, any disease, should have a little bit of slower route back to recovery. There will be a lot of companies, so obviously that are going to come through this even better than they ever were. And fact is, people just aren't spending money right now because they're so worried, and that could also hurt economies as we come out, because maybe the population just decides they want to save and putting money under the mattress instead of spending. And that's going to hurt the companies further. So it's happened before. We'll see what happens here. One of the positives in this situation, though, is just the speed that everything's happened. Just a couple of positives that I'll actually touch on. One, that's the speed that everything's happened. So we dropped so fast. It's the fastest drop we've ever had on the market. And the fact that we are now finally coming together and staying home, keeping our social distance, and things seem to be getting better on the curve. So reduction in number of people dying as well as people getting the that should down the road get people back into their lives that they were in the most part a little bit faster. So our economy was in a pretty good shape when we started this, and if we have all the right monetary and fiscal policy that it seems like our governments and our Fed is actually trying to do, that means that we're going to be able to come out of it, hopefully, a lot faster than what we've seen in the past. So recessions, depressions, we saw in the past taking 7 years to come out of. But with this, we kind of feel like the recession might last a couple quarters. And we've seen the market coming back already. The second that we saw a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel with China's numbers decreasing with the virus, the market started coming back immediately. And I don't think it's finished with its downturn. We might have some weakness coming up in the next weeks and months ahead, as we're now in earnings season. But overall, I think there is a opportunity for us to come back out of this pretty quickly as well. Not as fast as obviously the onset.
Yeah, but I think you're right. I think, like you said, we just saw an incredibly steep decline that essentially happened because all the borders in the world shut. people couldn't trade, and once we get to the end of this where people can trade, and even before that happens, when people realize that this isn't the end of the world,
and that's the reason why markets have been coming back already.
Yeah.
That the 35 or 34.5% drop that we saw was the market basically pricing in the absolute worst case scenario. And as we see things getting better, the market's coming back because it's a forward thinker. It sees things before we do. As soon as we see any positives, the markets are going to be moving already. So we just have to keep it in mind that hopefully we don't have a recurrence, and make sure that we're safe. So let's not run back to our jobs out in the business world. Let's stay at home and stay safe for a little bit of extra time to make sure that we're able to do this more and more later. We're able to
giving the healthcare workers a chance.
Life more and more later. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, no, sorry. We're basically giving the healthcare workers a chance on,
Yeah, exactly. This is a healthcare crisis.
Yeah.
That's what we're looking at here. And I applaud them every night. We've got the group downtown in Vancouver, 7 p.m. People out on patios and porches and streets cheering. It's pretty great. And I think that the healthcare workers have done a fantastic job.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, they can't be commended enough. They're totally the salt of the earth. Incredible people.
Agreed.
What's your opinion on? Have you seen anything that like Sweden are doing? They haven't done. I don't know if they have yet, but when I looked last week, they haven't a lockdown in place. Now they have advised elderly people and people with compromised immune systems to cocoon, isolate themselves, but they're kind of going about their business. Do you think that's something that we'll have to do possibly ourselves? Cocoon some older people or infirmed relatives or people with compromised immune systems, and we just kind of go about our lives a little bit. And their cases are high.
Possibly just keeping the elderly cocoon while the rest of the world kind of gets back to work.
Yeah, and I'm Irish, and Ireland has more cases than Sweden, and Ireland has been full lockdown for 3-4 weeks almost. My parents are in their 70s; they don't leave the house. Sweden could have a significantly larger population. I'm sure that it does, but it's very interesting what they've done. Totally different to the rest of the world. People still go about their business. I think that's what we'll see when, like you said, when things open, and if we get the second wave, like you said, we mightn't have to do the distancing, but it will just be in people's memory.
Yeah, I hope so. I do feel it is odd and weird, but every country and every leader has their own plan and own initiatives, and they're all strong-minded in their own way.
Yes.
They'll put the laws that they feel that also could benefit them into staying in their position in the future. So if really people in Sweden or Scandinavia feel that it's very important to carry on being outside, and they'll keep this in mind, but they're not really taking it as a very important thing to do. Hopefully they don't get burned on it, and if they do, that could possibly cause all of us to get burned on it again, and that'll bring it more into a global situation.
Yeah, exactly. So we kind of went off on a COVID tangent. Unfortunately, that's it's just the way that it goes. Once you start talking about it, it's hard to stop. Question for you. If you were given a little bit of advice to, we'll say, a young investment advisor, somebody who wants to get in the industry now, what advice would you give them? What advice would you give yourself before you went on your sea ship cruises?
Patience. Being patient, I think, is one of the most important things. You can't be emotional at all. You have to be absolutely true to your vision and your plan. There is a ton of emotion in markets, and a lot of advisors come into it really excited, and then they're unable to handle it the first time they have a major downturn, much like a lot of their clients. So there's definitely a huge learning learning scale on that. But overall, I think the patience is really the big point for me, because I've known always that I could handle the ups and the downs. But you want to do something, and you're watching, and you're like, yeah, I think we're going to go now. No, you got to stay patient. You got to stay patient. Take your foot off the throttle a little bit, and watch things a little bit longer. Make sure. So you got to triple check. Make all the confirmations that you can before you do make your moves. So I think that's probably one of the most important things that I've learned in the last 10 years. But along with that, obviously, gaining trust and being professional, being consistent. So if you're not going to wear a tie, that's okay. You don't have to wear a tie. Not everyone does. But be consistent in what you do with your clients. Yeah. So don't create surprise in their mind. And it comes down to the very easy, simple things. So when you show up, if you're wearing something flashy that you really never wore before, they say, well, what's happened here? Why is he changed? They're looking for consistency. And that's part of the trust, but also obviously holding their hand at the beginning and teaching them to become investment professionals themselves. If they don't want any part of the knowledge that we have to bring to them for investing, then I don't really want them as a client, because we're going to be butting heads at some point, and we don't need to be. We need to be on the same team. And part of that is making sure that your clients are educated. So, yeah, you got to be an educator. You got to definitely be patient. You have to create trust and be consistent. I think those are probably the most important parts of being an advisor.
Brilliant. Colin, we're out of time. That was a quick 30 minutes. Thank you very much.
Well, thanks very much, Sean. Sorry about the couple tangents in there that went on for a little while.
No, brilliant. That's what it's all about. I want Ulysses moment, just constant stream of consciousness. That's what we're after here.
Right now.
And we'll hopefully have you on again, maybe on the other side of all of this.
Right on, Sean. Well, I appreciate it. Thanks again.
Thanks. Bye-bye.